everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Global Wired Women. And today I'm super excited. I have with me Janis. Janis, hi, and welcome to the Global Wired Women. And please introduce yourself. Who is Janis and where are you interviewing from?
Hello, I'm happy to be here. I'm from Canada and I am the founder and owner of My Body Couture, which is a movement and nutrition studio where I help people feel better in their body.
Amazing. Okay, that's my first for me. I've never ever come across anybody who does that. So, if any of our audience or listeners and viewers are anything like me, they would like to have that broken down. Can you explain to me what that entails?
100%. So, most of the people that come to see me have something in their body that hurts. So, usually it's things like sore necks, sore backs, sore shoulders, sore knees, sore hips. And at that point, everybody who's an adult says, yeah, that's me. And most of my clients have been to a chiropractor, massage therapist, or a physiotherapist. And those are great disciplines. I actually refer clients back and forth to a lot of those other practitioners. However, what my clients tend to find is that they go to these practitioners for the pain relief techniques and it works. It provides some temporary relief, but then the person goes back to their life, their job, their fitness, their children, lifting things, doing housework, etc., and that pain comes back. So I often work with clients who've kind of been trapped in that cycle for months or sometimes years or up to decades where they're just looking for that permanent solution. So for example, the other day I had a woman who started with me. She has had pain in the side of her leg and in her bum, so it's kind of sciatica, since
Yeah.
she was in high school, and she's now 44 years old. She worked with me for 2 sessions and reported that the pain is gone. She had been to a dozen other practitioners and kind of spent really 25 years trying to figure out how to get rid of it. So I'm using exercise-based techniques that I teach people so that we can actually get to the bottom of what's going on and create permanent pain relief. And that doesn't mean it's kind of something that you only do once. One of the benefits to having it be exercise based is that you can repeat it on your own and you don't need that practitioner. So you don't need me.
Wow, that is so awesome. I can think of a million people. Okay, I don't know a million people, but I can think of a handful of people in my own circle of friends and family that could use that kind of service or assistance, so to speak. So that is so awesome. That is such an amazing type of work that you do. So tell me, how did you go from well, I do know that you're an entrepreneur now, and behind the scenes we spoke about going from a 9 to 5 job. Is that something that you've experienced yourself, and if so, how did that transformation happen for you? If you can share with us, please.
Yes, definitely. So I just described owning a business, and it sounds like I've possibly always done that, and I haven't. So I actually do something that is a complete career shift for me. I used to work in the fashion media. I currently live in Canada, but I used to actually live in Toronto and then New York. So I moved cities, I changed careers, I changed countries, and my entrepreneurial passion drove me to do that. I loved my fashion media career, but it was more in the lines of the traditional 9 to 5 job. It actually was kind of more like a 10 to 10 job.
Yeah, fashion, right? Fashion.
Super high paced, really amazing lifestyle benefits and perks. And I thought that that job was really fulfilling. So I didn't leave that job because it didn't bring me happiness or joy. But my life completely shifted after I became a lone parent. And at that point, I decided to make a major career and life change and to become an entrepreneur so that I could manage my own time.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, especially the end bit, so you could manage your own time. That is really a good incentive for you to move and change careers. And like you, myself, I was in retail for a quite number of years, and it's just exactly like you. To your point, it's not like I didn't like it. I was in bridal for goodness sake, so
Oh,
it's
fun.
helping brides to find
Yeah.
tour gowns. I worked with Vera Wang, New York as well, and David's Bridal. So it was such a fulfilling career. But like to your point, I got to a point where I got so tired. Those, like, again, to what you said, it was 9 to 9, wasn't it? And it was just so tiring, and you just couldn't find that time to just have some self-care and just to relax and rest. So retail is like very taxing, but fashion industry even
Oh
more.
yeah.
So yeah,
It's
I can relate.
relentless. Yeah, and I loved the high pace, high powered roles within that world. But it was something where as a parent, this is no judgment for anybody else or anybody else's life or anybody else's choices, but I really realized that I was going to have to employ a nanny to help out with my child.
Yeah,
That's obviously quite expensive, and that I was looking at raising my child in a way that I didn't feel was really in line with how I wanted to. So by becoming an entrepreneur, I am able to always be at school functions. I'm able to kind of make my work life ebb and flow in a way that is actually more beneficial to my family, because that fashion world and that New York world is something where there is no wiggle room for your personal life. And
yeah,
so becoming an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily create buckets of extra time. In some ways, I work more than I used to, but I manage and I control what I do and when I do it.
absolutely. And I'm glad that you clarified that, because that's not what we're saying. Being entrepreneurs doesn't make us work less, but we work
No,
smarter. So we work around, we have a work-life balance. I absolutely agree with you. And of course, yeah, that life of fashion in New York and the hills and everything, been there, done that. And being a parent, a single parent as well, I said before we came on that I can relate to that, because there was a part of my life when I was a single parent. So I absolutely understand that. So if I may ask you, what does it take then? What sort of attributes and traits do you have to have as a person that moves and takes up that courage to literally transform yourself from that 9 to 5 transition? What would you share with our viewers would be that your
absolutely. So I think a lot of creativity. We need to be able to see things that don't exist. And that means that when things become difficult, when things are challenging, when you hit those brick walls, that you need to actually be able to dig inside yourself and find solutions that don't otherwise exist. And that is not an easy thing to do. In a corporate world, we have buffers, we have barriers, we've got team energy, we've got whole momentum underneath us. So creativity is a minor piece of what we need to do, even if we're called to sit at a boardroom table and the words that are used are, let's think of a new solution that's out of the box that we've never thought of before. Entrepreneurial creativity is a whole other level, because it really is about your whole business, and it's creating something where there is no momentum, there is nothing that exists. You are creating creativity out of a blank piece of paper, and so you have to constantly be kind of pulling that out of you. I also think it takes a tremendous amount of resilience and grit. So there's always things that are going to come up. There's always unexpected issues. There's always failure. There are always things you try and don't work out, but you have to just stand up tomorrow, this afternoon, 5 minutes from now, and keep trying. So I think that that takes a huge amount of resilience, which again, in a corporate setting, we've got that momentum. We kind of have that envelope and that bubble around us. So the levels that we require as an entrepreneur are just so much deeper on both of those elements.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Yeah, so just to recap, that's creativity and resilience. I couldn't agree with you more, because yeah, the corporate world is so fully structured and organized for you, and you can just tap into the elements that suit your skill set, and the rest of it is done by somebody else. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you're your own VA, you're your own accountant, you're your own director, and the list goes on. So thank you so much for sharing those points, resilience and creativity. There you have it. So moving on, Janis, so what would you say to your younger self if you were to look back, let's say, I would say to the 21-year-old self, what would you say back to her? What kind of advice would you be giving her?
I think actually I enacted the kind of life that I would recommend to my 21 self, which is do what you can and do what you want to do, because life is going to take you on a different path than what you think. So I had the fortune where I could fling myself at my dreams, and I really went after these unexpected things in my life. So things where people should have said no, or that I never should have ended up in that position. You know, I grew up on a farm in Canada and I ended up working in the fashion media in New York City. And I did that really by a refusal to cap my own dreams. And I think that we have a really limited time in our life when we can actually do that and when we can act out on that. So I already had a university education, but I wasn't married and I didn't have kids. And so I was able to move around. I was able to explore. I lived in Toronto and New York and Montreal and San Francisco. And I was able to really chase those dreams and build that resume and build up some resilience for people saying no, while I also realized that for every no that I got, I was going to get some really unexpected yeses.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really the key, because when we've got that in our DNA and we realize that we can hear some yeses and we can get these really unexpected, crazy, wild things happening to us, then we can actually mature and use our gravitas and our experience to actually continue doing the same thing, maybe in a less impulsive way.
Yeah. I completely get it. I personify global wired women. To your point, I did live vicariously in a good way. Left my native country, Zambia, Lusaka, moved on to New York, moved on to Columbus, Ohio, ended up in San Francisco. Now I live in London. So yes, like you're a woman after my own heart, and you're complete epitome of what a global wired woman should be and should look like: fearless and willing to challenge that status quo. So this is why I was so attracted to your profile when I first came across it, and I knew that I just had to. So you've ticked all the right boxes. So you're my right kind of girl. So thank you so much for sharing that, Janice. So moving on to a bit more serious things, like obviously as a global wired woman guest, I like to pick your brains a little bit to figure out what it is, sort of advice would you give to our listeners and our audience if you were to unpack just 2 points, giving them that you've learned from your own personal experience as an entrepreneur. What would be those 2 pieces of advice that you'd give to anyone who's looking to become an entrepreneur? Maybe they're still like on the edge. They're right now one foot in corporate world and the other foot in the fashion industry. And they're trying to figure out, saying, oh my gosh, I'm just listening to Janice. She worked in New York. How can I transform myself from where I am to where she is right now?
Well, when I made that transition, this is really where my advice comes in. I didn't do that from black to white. There was a huge gray zone in there. My personal passion was fitness and nutrition. So, in the background of all of this moving around and promoting myself and getting promotions and hitting this career success in that corporate world, I was taking courses and classes and certification in what I do now. And that was really done as a personal passion. It wasn't done to career shift, but I was able to get that training and that education while I had the safety and protection of a corporate job. Mm-hmm. So then, because I had that corporate job, I actually ended up doing what we now call a side hustle. Back in those days, we didn't have any words for it, but I actually started. own little mini
Called
business.
moonlighting.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So I started my own little side hustle. And again, this wasn't kind of pre-planned, but it was really the only way that I could work with clients because I had a corporate job. So I decided to start seeing clients in my apartment. And what ended up happening was 5, 6 years later, I had experience in how much to charge clients, in who I like to work with, in what results I could get them, in missing pieces of my certification. So then I could actually add education where I could say, oh, I can't solve this problem. How do I actually learn how to solve this problem, etc. And so this wasn't something where I was just like that.
Yeah.
So my best advice is, if you're actually wanting to take those steps out, start to take steps in. Start to get steps in where you are taking that training, acquiring equipment, doing some of that background work. Because even with all of that, when I did start my business, I had already done this part-time for 6 or 7 years, and I was totally taken aback by how much different it was, because now I had a bricks and mortar space. Now I had to deal with cleaning the floor and inventory and just all these different elements, business licensing, working with the city, etc. I was unprepared for how much time all of those things actually took. So I can't imagine what this would have looked like if I had also been trying to earn certifications and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my first piece of advice.
Yeah.
And my second is really to chase your passion. And I think that we owe ourselves a life where we do what we love for a living. That's what's going to make us successful. And it's not true that if you work at a job you love, you'll never work another day in your life. But I think you do yourself a huge favor, because if you open a business that you're really passionate about, you can change it, you can grow it, you can kind of follow your own passions and keep evolving that business.
Mm, I like it. I love it a lot. I like particularly, I have to quote you on that one. It's not about stepping out, it's about stepping in. And, just to add on to that, it's stepping into your enlightenment, stepping into your new persona, and just putting that on and being present. But I also like your advice about personal development while you're still in your corporate job, doing that personal development or skills development or certifications, whatever the case may be, which for the most part, young people tend to want to fast forward everything. They want to cut corners. They want overnight success. I mean, look at me myself, like at my age, like when I had, unlike you, for me, it was a deliberate career change move. So when I was in retail all along, whilst I was working in retail up until 2017, I was still holding down that job, and I put myself back into university, into
Oh,
school,
wow.
to do public relations and get myself certified, even though I knew what public relations was and I'd already done it for a number of years. But because I didn't have the credentials to show that I actually had the capability to do it at that consultancy level, I took myself back to school at 48. I was the oldest person in my class with 21, 19-year-olds to begin with. So I graduated with 21-year-olds at 51.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. I just love that, because there are no shortcuts in life. You've got
No.
to put in the work. And as glamorous as being an entrepreneur looks like, it's a lot of hard work. And you've got to put in the training. So I really like that advice. It was really, really good insight and great piece of advice. So before I let you go, I just want to ask that, so what does it take? What is in your superpower toolbox that helps you to keep going and to sustain you in the business that you are in, that makes you get up each and every day, apart from the passion that you have? But what is it that you say to yourself? Do you self-counsel? Do you get motivated by maybe a business coach, or how do you do it?
That's a really good question. So I think that when we own businesses, especially if we're in a business that relates at all to personal development, we have to actually do our own personal development work. And that's one of the things that actually does keep me going, because I don't have a life where I have a business persona and a personal persona. I don't have that split between me as a professional and me as a mom and me in the rest of my life. I'm a completely aligned person. And that actually is a huge difference between being in the corporate world and being an entrepreneur. Because as entrepreneurs, yes, we put on our business faces and yes, we can be professional, but we can't have this huge divide between who we are when we show up at work and who we are in the rest of our life, because our work is our life. So I think that being an entrepreneur, you have to kind of go into the pit of your soul, dig around, do some work down there, renovate the area, deal with your, your trauma, your emotions, all of that stuff. Because if you're unbalanced, you cannot run a business, period. If you are emotionally out of sorts, you cannot run a business, period, because that is going to come into your business. So I actually love the self-growth and personal development that I get out of my business. That actually does keep me going every day. When I kind of get to what I think is the bottom of the basement, oh, there's a sub basement in there. Pull it up, keep digging. And so I actually feel like I have a career where there's unlimited potential for my growth as a human being, which is what keeps me going every day.
Love it. I love it. Well, it's been so awesome talking to you and finding out more about what you do, but I don't want to leave it there. If our audience and listeners are listening and watching, they're thinking like, oh my gosh, I want to connect with Janis. How would they find you and how can they connect with you?
They can find me at mybodycouture.com, which is 3 words, my body, B-O-D-Y, couture, couture.com. So that's the portal for everything else on the web, but you can find me more directly at Instagram and Facebook as well under the same business name.
Amazing, amazing. And we'll make sure we'll put your links down below in the video so people can just link and find you directly. It's been such a joy and a privilege talking to you, Janis. It's been such a pleasure. And I look forward to continuing a conversation with you along these lines so that we can help more people find their voices. And thank you so much for joining me on the Global Wired Women episode today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. You have it, viewers. We had Janis on our show today, tuning in from Canada. And my name is Jennifer Nash. I'm your global visibility strategist. And tune in and follow the links below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.